Good morning, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us today for this MitID webinar update. This is actually our 9th in the MitID series, and the webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes. It will be recorded and shared with you afterwards. It'll be posted to our YouTube channel and also sent out for your viewing afterwards. So if you have your coffee ready, we should be good to go. Our panel today consists of our product manager, Lars Møller Christensen. Good morning to you, Lars.
Good morning.
And also from the high north in Trondheim, Norway, one of our other regulars, Helge Lund Kolsted. Good morning to you, Helge.
Good morning.
And myself, my name is Henrik Hansen. I am pre-sales supporting the Danish sales team. Most of you probably already have been in some form of contact with them, and happy to be a co-host here in this fine company. So today we are going to go through a few items. So in a few minutes, Lars will give you an update on the MitID project timeline and also some of the service provider TNCs. Then I will give you a short update on the MitID offering add-ons, and that is just before Helge takes you down the migration path with the latest and greatest from that side. And as always, we will round off with a question and answer session. So do raise your questions using the Q&A button, and we will revisit those at the end of the session. Anything that we cannot answer up front, we will post and share with you later, but we prefer to give you the right answer rather than to just give you a quick one. So we'll get back to that in just a little while. But first, for the few who might not know us yet, who we are, what we do, and why we do it, we are Signicat and we are on a mission. Our mission is to build a trusted digital world for us all, and we have services that have done so since 2007. We are more than 250 digital trust specialists scattered over one of the most digitized continents in the world, and headquartered in Norway, but with development hubs across Europe as well. Obviously today with a primary focus here of serving our Danish clients or clients operating inside of Denmark. We handle more than 30 electronic IDs on a regular basis, and the newest addition to that family is the Faroese Samleikin. So if any of you does any business up in the North Atlantic, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. We are an approved reseller of that EID. But of course, the reason for why we are all here is the MitID addition to the EID family. And here to give you an update on the MitID project timeline, and also to mention the latest about the service provider terms and conditions, I will hand the mic over to you, Lars.
Thank you, Henrik. Thank you. Yeah, let's have a look at the timeline. We shared this with you on the last webinar. This is the timeline we received from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen in December, mid-December. I'll show or share an update to this, but I think it illustrates very well the different phases with the development, with the acceptance tests, the pilot of selected special selected user groups, and the migration, and also important all the press initiatives that we will see from the banks and the Digitaliseringsstyrelsen. Quite an impressive work behind this that will launch in 2 months' time or so, and then follow the plan here. So just to share this with you, and the next one, Henrik, is on the rollout. Next slide, please. Yeah, the rollout, which indicates that it's a soft rollout over the summer, and then after summer holidays, the full migration will enter, driven by the banks, reaching a level at 45,000 migrations, MitID to MitID per day. So really, really tough. But this is as of December 15th, and we have an update, a change in the timeline for MitID. They have chosen to extend the closed pilot phase So originally, the closed pilot phase from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen, the banks and the RAs, the registration authorities, has been extended from 1 month being May to June. It has been extended with 2 months, so now it's May to August. So this will actually mean for those of you who are private service providers that the full MitID potential will not be at your business before mid-August. August 16th is the day where the mass migration will begin. So this leaves some more room if you want, or if you still want to be part of the first in production, you can do that. This means that potentially there will be 7,500 MitID users in the closed pilot phase. Those 7,500 will be approximately 1,000 for each of the banking centrals from BEC, STC, Bank Data, 1,000 for Nordea, 1,000 for Danske Bank, probably 1,000 for Digitaliseringsstyrelsen. We as a broker will also receive some MitID users in production, and we will probably also be able to share some with some of you, those of you who are interested in that. We haven't received that information yet from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen or the program behind. So this is an update to the timeline that the pilot phase, the closed pilot phase, will run from May 6th until August 15th. So if we look at our swim lane here, we have access now to the pre-prod environment in MitID. We are beginning the certification process. We have a certification process with more than 200 points, security points that we have to pass. This is all the way down to security code review, to certification process policies, and so on. So we will start that and be final with that in April, no later than 23rd of April. That's a certification process for Signicat as a broker. After that, we will get access to the MitID production environment 24 hours before MitID goes live. So this is, I mean, this is not set up for a full-blown go live, but as a soft launch, you can say. When we have access to the production system, we will have to enable all of you service providers in the production environment. We have a tool for creating service providers in the MitID infrastructure, and we have to do that in the production system, which we get access to 24 hours before it goes live. So it's not the Signicat that are delaying this or not being able to launch quickly. It's part of the whole infrastructure and the full MitID framework. For you as a service provider, it means that when we have, or from April 5th, 6th, April 6th, you will be able to get access to the Signicat MitID pre-prod environment. That means you can start to test your implementation. And when we have created you in the as a service provider in the production system of MitID, you will be able to access the production system through your integration to Signicat. And if you have some of the 7,500 pilot users, you could, of course, run in production with those. Yeah, we have to discuss that and share more info with you when we receive how many test users we actually, or users we can get in the pilot phase. Okay, next one, Henrik. This means that basically the message today is that you can choose as a service provider to go in production between May 6th and August 16th. It's up to you how you see the pilot phase, the closed pilot phase, how you want to be part of that. Of course, there's 7,500 friends and families, professional users of MitID that potentially could use the service at your website, but on the other hand, it will be persons that knows this is still a pilot phase, and will probably not expect to see some full-blown MitID login here or whatever. So yeah, that was an update on the timeline. And just to emphasize that the migration is still taken care of by the banks. We as bank customers will, when it's our turn, we will get a notification when we log into our netbank using MitID, that now it's your turn to receive your MitID, and there will be a process in the netbank flow where you go through an activation, where you migrate from MitID to MitID. You activate the MitID smartphone app or order a token, and you have 30 days to do that. If you don't do it within 30 days, you'll be forced to migrate. And when you have migrated, you will no longer be able to use MitID in the banking, in the netbank. This is only for the banks. For all other private service providers, MitID will still work. It's a part of emphasizing or making sure that the migration takes place, driven by the banks. Yeah, we got our final broker contract with the whole MitID infrastructure. We got that in place last week. This means that we also have to pass on some of the terms and conditions that we are part of in the MitID as a broker, and we have planned that to in what we call MitID Appendix 4 for our standard software as a service contract that some of you or most of you already have. So we will supply you an Appendix 4 that holds the terms and conditions for MitID services you get from Signicat. There are especially two areas that you have to look into. One is security requirements. They are listed on our website. You see the link below. There's a list of security requirements that you are obliged to follow. It's in line with best practice security implementation standards. So it's nothing that will kill the implementation people here. It's just a matter of ensuring that you accept to follow the requirements that is listed in that area. Another area is the UX and branding guidelines. They will also be posted probably next week on the same page below the security requirements. And it's a matter again of not misusing, for instance, the service provider name in the MitID context. They are extremely focused on having a really clean messaging around MitID and the use of MitID as a trusted national infrastructure. Yeah, next one, Henrik. So we see more and more frequent updates from Digitaliseringsstyrelsen and the program behind MitID as we get closer to go live. So we have decided that we want to share on a more frequently basis than the monthly webinar and newsletters we have around MitID in using our Signicat community. We have a community.signicat.com where you can ask questions and search for answers and FAQ. So we have created a MitID area in the community where you could subscribe with selecting the follow button. Then you will be notified if posts are available or when a new post comes in the community. And we will share updates on timelines and different things. There will also be an FAQ that Helge will come back to. So please create an account on the community and follow what you are interested in here. Yeah. I think that was it for my part right now. So over to you, Henrik.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Lars. And I believe that our brilliant administration team in the background have prepared a poll for you to run now. So if you could bring that up and please cast your votes, then we'll move on very shortly. So the answers to the question are: when do you plan to be ready to test MitID in pre-production? And the choices are April, May, or later. And of course, that is in relation to Lars's just updated timeline here. And we'll just give you 10 more seconds. Yep. Okay. So thank you very much for that. We'll get back to the answers very shortly. So moving on to the next section of the webinar, I will take you through a very brief look at some of the MitID offering add-ons that we provide, being a certified MitID broker. And if I can just change the slides here. So all of you, if not at least most, then you already authenticate your users using MitID. It's one of the proven methods that has been on the market since 2010, and therefore now in dire need of a technology replacement. So MitID will be introduced very soon, as we all know, offering exactly at least the same level of assurance, just in a more modern technology. But that also means that for this transition period, which currently lasts at least the end of the year, some of your clients will have the possibility of choosing between MitID and MitID login. That has facilitated the need for what we call an interaction design, which I'll get back to in just a few seconds. So if we look at our basic offering, or what we call the basic service for MitID, that is probably what comes closest to the current setup today, mainly because the existing iframe technology will be abolished, and therefore a pop-up or a redirect is required. Our basic service contains, you can say, this gray in gray image, so to speak, and will allow your users to log on. It'll do the job, and we will happily host it for you in a domain. However, even though a basic service might be enough for most of you, we also know that other offerings could be needed. And that's why we've grouped three different blocks, one called the user experience enhancements, one the security enhancements, and one being the payment enhancements. And from our previous webinars, we've been through many of these, so I'll not go into details on any or most of them. But just let you know that single sign-on is on the table for the second half of this year. And of course, we'll also enable you to do your PSD2 compliant payment transactions and transaction consents. But today we'll focus on three items that we have grouped together in a condensed view. Many of those who attended our February webinar will know that the graphical profiles was the deep dive there, so I won't go too much into that, but I'll just tie it in with our CPR match and business identity offering. So a typical flow could look like this in the interaction design during the transition period, where you have to, as I mentioned, offer your clients two different ways of logging into your portals or my page or whatever service it is that you are offering. And that can be hosted with you or with us, giving the possibility to log on using both alternatives. We've also been through in the webinars, as I mentioned, how to make these graphical profiles with various targeted segments that you can offer your clients. And some of you might also have the need or the desire to capture the customer's CPR number and match that with your records at the back of the system. That is also a service that we are offering. And finally, for MitID users who also serve as service providers and businesses themselves, they might represent one or more entities when they log on, and the CPR number is attached to either privately owned business registry, etc. So therefore, it could possibly look something like we've brought on the screen here, where I either represent Helle Jensen or maybe Jensen Services or Jensen Holding. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that, but just say at least that if you still have issues to design or determine what you need, graphical profile wise, then don't hesitate to get in contact with us. And with that very brief notice about our offerings, it's time to look at some of the most important stuff, mainly how do we get there, or how do you get there? And for that purpose, we have, as I mentioned initially, lined up with our onboarding manager and expert, Helge Lund Kolsted. And Helge, will you take it from here?
Thank you, I will. Can I have the next slide, please? All right. So when you sign up with us, you will also be offered the opportunity to fill out this migration plan. I realize that this has been mentioned several times before, but it's such an essential document that I feel it's worth mentioning once more. Yes. And this is the path that you will take when migrating to MitID with us. You will sign a MitID agreement with Signicat, which we have already mentioned. We will share an onboarding plan, including the estimated start of migration and planned end date, which you will also fit into the plan. The inputs you have shared on MitID UI considerations, which you also got an update on just now, and also choice of protocol. At this point, it's worth mentioning again that the SAML 1.1, which we supported in MID, is no longer supported in MitID, so you will have to choose either OpenID Connect or SAML 2.0. And we do recommend OpenID Connect, which is the lightweight but still secure and modern protocol. Yes, we will also share with you, if applicable, a list of existing services that you use for MitID today and a list of subdomains that you use today. When we are able, we will then register you as a customer in the MitID portal. Since this has come up as a question at several points, it's worth mentioning that there is no need for you to obtain a merchant certificate or anything like that. The process is handled exclusively by us. So no additional agreement is needed, no additional setup on your end is needed beyond the need for OpenID Connect or SAML 2.0. We will set up MitID for you in pre-production and production as soon as we are able, and we will notify you when that is done. And at this point, you can make any necessary changes in your configuration in your integration in your product that encapsulates Signicat, and you are good to go. Could I have the next slide, please? Yes. MitID, as previously mentioned, will be released in pre-production on April 6th towards service providers. I should mention at this point that although we have access to MitID in pre-production, service providers do not. It is hidden behind a firewall. I just checked. So in case you were wondering why you do not have access yet, while we do, that is the reason. If you need any testing before that date, there are some things we can do for you. I shall admit that it isn't a whole lot, but we can provide example responses, we can provide screenshots, and we can provide general advice. Please contact us and we will do what we can for you. Yes, MitID test tool, I went through this on the last webinar as well, but to keep the information fresh, I thought I would mention it again. This is what it looks like, and it's very similar to the test tool that exists for MitID today. In here you can handle all the test identities you need. You can revoke, suspend, issue new passwords, and so on, with the available actions on the right-hand side there. Yes. I should also mention at this point that the MitID documentation that is on our site, developers.signicat.com, has been updated this week. So if you haven't viewed it recently, it's worth taking a second look, because we have made quite extensive updates to that site.
Indeed, thank you very much for that, Helge. And before we move on to our questions, if our kind administrators can just post our second poll for the day. So when do you plan to be ready for MitID in production? Is it the original May? Is it sometime over the summer, June, July, or will August do nicely for you? Please cast your votes now and within the next 20 seconds, please. Thank you. Now, as the final object of the session, if I can just get on to the next slide here, questions and answers. And Lars, will you do the honor of reading any questions that have come in during the first session?
Yes, maybe Helge, you can just continue, because there's a question here. What areas has been updated in the documentation? Oh,
several areas. The area on firstly, it has been split into several sections, so it's more easily accessible than the block of text that were there previously. It has this section on signing has received some updates. There are so many updates. Many of them are minor.
But one of the larger upgrades also, there's a new structure where you have sub menus, so it's easier to find what you're looking for.
Indeed, the front end setup section has been quite extensively updated. For example, there is an FAQ section which has received some updates. Example responses, were they there last time?
Maybe this is a bit in line with another question. If we know if there's any documentation in English provided by Nets or Digitaliseringsstyrelsen, and this is you can say this is we get information that is confidential. Because it's security related and implementation wise. So the information you need as a service provider will have to come from Signicat as a broker. So if there's something you miss, let us know. If it's not easy to find, let us know. But we should be the single source of this. There's another question, why is the pilot phase being extended? We haven't got any answer to this or comment to this, except that we guess it's a matter of ensuring the migration and the migration processes and the registration authority processes, they need more time to make sure that happens or that is worked well. There's another question here on is it possible for you to share detailed design specifications for the graphical profiles so we have the opportunity to integrate your design into our prototyping work? I guess we are very close to be able to do that. We have the rough templates, but the detailed design specifications, I guess they are, I guess it's within a week or so that we are able to share that with you as well. Any comments from you, Helge, on that?
No, I don't have any additional comments on that.
I think it's the implementation is taking place in these design sprints we are running right now, or development design sprints we are running now. So I guess the specification will be ready on the developer pages shortly.
Yeah, so perhaps that is one worth for pushing onto our community, where, as Lars mentioned earlier, you can sign up and get notified whenever there is something new. And the aim for us is to update you weekly on matters there rather than our monthly webinars. And in the interest of time, we will also answer any remaining questions and post them to the community there, because unfortunately, that is all we have time for. So we will send out the presentation afterwards along with the recording, which will also be published onto our YouTube channel, where you can find more. Do register on your community and go to our developer pages if you have an appetite for more knowledge about what it is that we do. And if you still have any doubts whether how to get to MitID or what is required of you, go to our resources section on the web page and book a meeting with one of our migration consultants, and we'll get in contact with you as soon as possible. So from me and from Lars and Helge, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your morning coffee with us. We hope you got what you came here for. And as always, we are never further away than an email or a phone call. So do get in touch if there is anything you want to share with us. And if nothing else, we will wish you a very pleasant day and hope to see you again next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.